Hi, my name is Eva Lucas, and before I say anything else, I want to start by saying this, that Lakewood Church has always been my home. I grew up on Pastor John Osteen's preaching, I grew up on Mama Dodie's faith, and I followed Pastor Joel for years, long before I ever knew I would need Freedom Ministry. Lakewood has been my spiritual anchor all my life, and my story weaves through faith, healing, and God's grace. In 2002, after giving birth to my second child, a medical error with an epidural, the same error that affected several different women that year, led to several complications, and I was placed into a long-term coma. I flatlined multiple times. I woke up 2 hours before life support was scheduled to be removed. I had to learn how to walk, talk, eat again, told I was a mother, I had children. My nervous system had to be reintroduced, rebooted, you can say, to light, to touch, to sound, to germs. And yet one thing that never left me was my spirit. God held me together when nothing else could. And that's another testimony for another time. But during the recovery, I wore a blindfold because light triggered seizures. And at that time, my son, who, as I was recovering, he was getting sick with his own disabilities. He had 2 rare spinal cord conditions, but he would sit next to me and play Lakewood sermons. So even when I couldn't see, I could hear faith coming through the room. Those messages rebuilt my soul. And this bookshelf you see beside me, these are not decorations or a backdrop. These are books I found to read during my rehabilitation. So I couldn't watch TV, so I lived at the library. Every book represents a piece of my comeback, a testimony stacked on a shelf. So I got Joel's books back there, Speak the Blessing. I'm reading Pastor Bowman's book, Freedom to Soar. But years later, while caring for my mother during her battle with bone marrow cancer in 2000 when the pandemic hit, I spent nearly 3 years speaking only to a man named Michael. We were introduced by a mutual friend. His mother also had passive cancer. We connected through grief and music. But during that time, when my mother was transitioning into heaven, I finally opened my heart up to meet him in person. Now, granted, it was just a phone call for 3 years. And one day while I was getting ready, he saw Pastor Joel on my TV. And that moment led to a conversation about faith, healing, and eventually brought us both to Freedom Ministry. The question I have is, how has Freedom Ministry online impacted our life? Well, Freedom Ministry came into our lives at the exact moment when we needed God's intervention. Michael was battling alcoholism. We had just got married in 2023, and we were trying everything, AA, other groups, but nothing really fit. And when I found Freedom Ministry online, the first person that I was introduced to, because I wanted to accompany Mike for support, was Brother Rashawn. And I asked him, could I stay? And he welcomed me immediately, and he made me feel comfortable from the very first second. Freedom wasn't just support, it was structure, it was clarity, it was accountability, and it was soaked in grace. Over time, I saw Michael change. Wonderful breakout group sessions with men, and then binges became fewer, then shorter, then stopped. I saw God break chains gently, not forcefully, and my own faith deepened because Freedom taught me how to pray with authority, not fear. Freedom Online strengthened us as individuals and as a couple. We're in Sugar Land, Texas, so we're not far to go hybrid to the actual Lakewood Church. But it reminded us that God doesn't just free the person from struggling, He frees the entire household. The next question is, how has being a facilitator helped me grow in my walk with the Lord? Well, I instantly started gravitating to becoming a volunteer. I wanted to volunteer my time because of what such impact it had in my life. So becoming a facilitator was never something I pursued. It blossomed naturally. I've always been a prayer warrior, an advocate for a living, a coach by nature. So when the opportunity arose to serve, it felt like stepping into something God had been preparing for me for my entire life. So facilitating has sharpened my discernment, my compassion, and my leadership. I've learned to listen more deeply, to hold space, to stand in the gap, and to pray over others with boldness and tenderness. So every breakout session reminds me that freedom is not a lesson, it's a lifestyle. It also has strengthened my marriage. Michael and I serve now together. He shows up at least to the groups, and there's something holy about couples who heal together and help others heal too. So facilitating hasn't just grown my walk with the Lord, it's aligned me with my purpose. The next question is, what is the difference between when you first came to Freedom Ministries and now? So when I first came to Freedom, I brought trauma from a coma, caregiving, loss, life transitions, blended family challenges, and the weight of helping my husband through an addiction. My life felt like a constant state of survival mode. Now, I walk in liberation, I walk in clarity, I walk in purpose. My marriage is stronger, my faith is firmer, my spirit is lighter, my heart is aligned. Before Freedom Ministries, I was carrying everything. After Freedom Ministries, I learned how to release everything. So the difference is night and day. I came in wounded, I now walk in victory. So if there's one thing I've learned in this, Freedom Ministries is not about being perfect. Freedom is about being willing. So at Lakewood Freedom Ministry, it gives people a place where chains can break, where hearts can heal, and where Jesus meets you exactly where you are. I look forward to serving, sowing, and growing with you in the breakout rooms, in the support group rooms, in the messages, and in this anointed ministry. So thank you for allowing me to share my testimony, and I look forward to blessing you soon.